Hi guys, this was a little bit quick now. I didn't even want to start this immediately because I'm still waiting for Rob. And he said, let's just have a quick chat. I don't even know if he has any topics. I sent him the link. So I'm not exactly sure whether I jumped the gun now. But I forgot that if I click on start the hangout, that it says, okay, you are now going to go live. I forgot about that. I haven't done this for a while because ever since all my channels have been locked down and cancelled and blah, 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 I haven't done so much anymore. So I haven't done a single video in a long time. I haven't hosted anything. I haven't done anything. Only last Friday, and I can't even remember what I did then. Okay, so we've got two viewers. So I'm hoping that one of them is Rob and that he is going to enter the chat because at the moment I don't even know if he has a topic or if he just wanted to say hi and say hi on a beautiful balmy summer Tuesday evening in July. So I've got no idea. Okay, so we want to talk about something on Islam, I suppose, because this is what we are focusing on. I don't like the idea that we need to criticize every single religion, every single religious book, every single god, every single... No. I think what we're doing is we're focusing on one area, and I think this is correct because I don't, for example, know very much about Hindus or Taoists or Zoroastrians or any other group, even Christians. I know very little about Christians. I mean, I know the basics because I've read the Bible, and that's just about it. And I've read a couple of, sort of opinions on what Christianity is, but nothing deep down. So I prefer chatting about Islam. Okay, I do not know. We can chat. Okay, I gave him the hangout. Let's move. Let's move. Let's move. Let's move. I'm awaiting. All right, let's see if he's going to join us. Because for me, it's very easy to always find a topic to talk about when it comes to Islam. If anybody wants to join, how am I going to do that? How am I going to do that? You would need to send me a message on Skype. This would be one possibility, and you just send it to Stopspamming1. Is there any other way of my sending out a hangout link to people who are out there? Because I am not watching the live link, the live show where the actual show is being sent, is being transmitted. Or maybe I can do that. If I go here, yes, I've got a chat. Fatima is here. Is it Friday already? No. And Chandra, looks like it's a surprise show. No. It's not a surprise show or anything. It's just that Rob came on and said, listen, don't you want to chat a bit about something? I said, yeah, because I am sitting this week. I'm at home in the evenings, and therefore I can sit and do some of the translating stuff for Ike. But I hate it with a passion. And this is why I will use any excuse not to do the translation stuff, but to come here and chat about Islam. So does anybody, because Rob is not here, anybody have any particular question or any suggestions or any whatever? Thought it was Saturday. Sorry, nope, it's not Saturday. No, it's beginning of July and it's Tuesday. And this is just an impromptu chat. How do you guys know about this? Are you being notified that there's a chat starting, which is originating or which is done by the Jinn&Tonic show? Or how do you guys know? Sorry. I joined, but you'd only hear the Ninky Nong from my end. Well, the Ninky Nong is actually what we're interested in. Okay, because this is exactly what we're talking about. People, I mean, I hate the idea, what I hear so frequently from Muslims, that you're only allowed to approach Islam if you're a scholar. I hate it with a passion. And this is why I like normal people talking about normal things the way that they see Islam. This is the point. Exactly. YouTube notification. Is that how you get it? Okay, great. I didn't know this thing because I've switched off all my notifications because I'm getting so many. and I'm being inundated, so I just switch off all of them. That's why I don't get this. This is why I don't know that there are useful ones as well. I have to set like a manual reminder in my phone that there's Jinn&Tonic show. Come on, move it. And if I'm not on the plane or something like this, then I try. And once I joined on a train. Once I joined on a plane, but oh no, on the plane it was actually no. On the train it was free. On the plane it was horrendous. What they charge you per minute, I think it was like $19 or something per minute. It was crazy. I'm a subscriber, so I get notified of all your channels. Oh, okay. So you've got all the notifications on. You guys saw the crazy Christian guy with the 26 Qur'ans because I think, are you referring to Jay Smith and his 26 Qur'ans? Is that the one? I'm on my phone, but my kids are still up. Okay. I like how Rob is the one who suggested let's do a hangout, and then he's the one who's not here. The crazy Christian guy with 26 Qur'ans. Okay, well, I'm asking because there's a guy called Jay Smith, all right? He's the one, he's the actor who just delivers his lines and he goes, Jesus, with his booming voice that you can hear halfway across London. You need to know that he's an actor, okay? He delivers his lines and he's a professional. You saw this when he was doing this chat with this gay guy, the big Muhammad Muslim apologist. He was standing on a ladder, and this Muslim guy was standing next to him on another ladder, and like in between they were having like administrative talks, and he says, "Okay, well, it's you now, and then we'll just do this, and then we'll do one more, and then we'll finish." And then he carries on. And he recites whatever it is that he has to say. So this is all rehearsed. So these are all like little reels of tape that he has in his brain, and then he switches to play mode, and off he goes. And then he says, "Okay, this is what happens in the Quran. This is what happens in Christianity." But there's nothing real. There's nothing that he makes up or something. It's all prefabricated. And it's quite amazing to watch him at work because he's incredibly professional the way that he works. No, there's no such thing as, I mean, this 26 different versions of Quran claims. I mean, that's a bit stupid because he does not, I think, understand the difference between version and variant, where you have different pronunciations. You have the Hafs and the Varsh, and you have which don't really differ so much in contents. So whether you say it is my Lord or whether it is my God does not really make a difference, does it? You can be picky and you say, well, if it's a God who protects his text, then yes, it should be the same word. But okay, maybe I'm more lenient there, and I think no, whether it says God or Lord or Savior or what the hell, it doesn't really matter. Or if you call Satan by another name, whether you say Lucifer or Satan doesn't really matter to me. But if you want to be picky, then of course it's different. These are the kind of differences that he picks out between the different versions. What he doesn't do is he doesn't go, this is what I did in my variant video, where I actually showed photos of the text in the old Tashkent version of, what was it, 37-101, I don't know if I remember correctly, which says that they were Muslims. Then you go to the 1924 version, the modern version, which says they were not. And then I show the photo where the one says yes, the other one says no. And I show the different Arabic. So I'm not talking about translations. I'm not talking about interpretations. I'm talking about the real original text, the way that it was. Sorry, I've still got this nasty cough. Okay, Rob just came back and says trying to join. 1 minute. So these are the different versions. So there are different. I mean, there are so many variations of the Quran even today. So if you go to Indonesia, for example, or to Morocco, or the example I always bring, like in Kuwait, where they had a couple of 100,000 of Qurans which all had mistakes in them, so they had to go and destroy them. These things happen because humans make mistakes. And the Quran is not by God, which would mean there's no mistakes, because it's made by humans. That's why you have so many mistakes in the Quran. Excuse me. But then you get apologists saying, no, there's not a single mistake in the Quran. Then you ask them, okay, well, what would you consider to be a mistake? And then they come up, then they start waffling. So I've never come across an apologist who will say, okay, this is what I consider to be a mistake. And then if you show them a mistake, he will say, you've actually got a point. No, they try and go like around the block, especially with this contradiction. Because in 30, yes, I'm sick, my mind is not going. So you have one version which says you are commanded not to have additional gods and to treat your parents well. And then in 6:151, it says you are prohibited from not having another god, and you are prohibited from treating your parents well. So the one says you are commanded from treating your parents well, the other one says you are prohibited from treating your parents well. So it's the exact opposite. So those are opposite contradictions in the Quran. So you go to a Muslim who says there's not a single contradiction, because there's a sentence in the Quran which says if it might have not been by God, you might find many contradictions within it. Well, here's a contradiction. So all you need is one single contradiction. So you go to a Muslim, you say, here's a contradiction. And they will not acknowledge this. They will just simply go crazy and say, no, this is not this. And actually, in Arabic, words have different meanings, and prohibited can mean commanded. And, it's bullshit. So there you go. Okay, so what Jay does is not really very, beneficial. Okay, let's take a look at the chat. Let's talk about Qatar crisis. So you've been there. Yeah, but just because I live there, and people say to me, well, you've worked with the government, you must have noticed something. No. I think, especially if you are that close to the source, you don't realize these things. And no, I have never realized that. I've never seen any kind of political activity in Qatar which was in any way geared or governed towards supporting any kind of terrorism. Now, do they support the Muslim Brotherhood? I don't know, and I'm not even sure that they do. I know that Al Jazeera, the TV station, they've got, I think it's still 3 journalists who are being held in Egypt. They're actually in jail. And I've never really understood why it is that they are in jail. Why they have been charged with, I think it's actually treason. I don't understand how that is possible, because we're talking about a Muslim country having a Muslim-based TV station. Okay, it is pretty lenient, it is pretty open, but it's still Islam-based, okay? And the funny thing is that now suddenly a Muslim country will ask another Muslim country to switch off its Muslim TV station, which is quite strange. So, okay. At David Wood, I don't think David Wood ever did the 26, or maybe he did. I don't know. I don't know everything. I don't follow David Wood. I think David is excellent. I think he's very, very good at what he does and has the facts, and that's it. But I don't really watch everything that he does. Okay, damn it, battling to join. Hangout app won't accept the link. Give me a few minutes. Okay, what do I do? Try entering only up to the question mark, because Google has done that in the past. So where you got the link and then you couldn't enter because everything behind the question mark somehow was some sort of qualifier, and this stopped you from joining. Okay. So if the scholars and Muslims and jinns can get married, then Muslims and jinns can get married. Yeah, you see, Ace, exactly. This is a good point. What people are saying is that it's not for normal people to go and make comments of any nature of what is inside the comment regarding anything if it's made by a lay person. All you're allowed to do as a layperson is you're allowed to read it and accept it, but you're not allowed to comment on it. before you're allowed to comment on it, you need to be a scholar. Now, what is a scholar? Well, somebody who speaks ancient Arabic, who knows, and then you get a lot of qualifiers which make it impossible for somebody to be a scholar. So then you say, yeah, but hang on, is Nouman Ali Khan, for example, is he a scholar? Yeah, he's a scholar. Yeah, but he doesn't fit this. He doesn't know any of this. No, but he's a scholar. So, people, this is like this very soft apologetic thing, this waffling approach, where they will just give you hot air, and then they say, well, it's like what we had in the Jinn&Tonic show like last time, where the guy says, well, you're not allowed to comment on this. This passage which says bring a surah like it is not intended for you. Even though the Quran says everything is intended for you, he says no, it's not intended for you, because this is the only way out. Because as soon as you start looking at the Quran, with a rational mind, and you use reason, and you use these 10 points that are raised with the Shermer baloney detection kit, of course you immediately see that it's nonsense. But you can't have that. So this is why they come up with this idea that everything is only allowed to be commented on by a scholar like this. Exactly. Yeah. So that's okay. Sorry about that, but I'm muting myself when I'm coughing. So let's see if Rob can join. What do I think about Al Jazeera? Well, Al Jazeera, I like Al Jazeera because it gives you a different perspective to CNN, to Sky News, to BBC News, all Fox News and all the others. I can't get Fox News here, so I don't get anything from them. So it's an alternative. Obviously, it's biased, and obviously, I don't trust anything that I see in any media outlet. I always go and double check. I don't take whatever any one of them says, at face value. I always go and check afterwards. So what do I think about Al Jazeera? It's just another alternative. Would I be sorry to see it go? Yes, absolutely, because it is an alternative, and it is, giving you, I don't know, a different outlook on a different on the same event, and it looks at things in a different way. And I think that's very good, and I think it's good to have alternatives. Okay, BJ is here as well. Say every letter is preserved. Well, you see, this is the whole point. Well, for cognitive, could we go into that a bit more? Like, what? The preservation of the Quran, or what? MI5 Guantanamo. Hello. End of the line, Joel. Aren't mainstream, i.e. prominent TV newspaper outlets losing audience anyway? I don't know. I get a great kick, like, over lunch, I make it a point of switching off. I go and turn away from the desk, and I will go somewhere, sit somewhere else. And if I don't like going out to restaurants for lunch because it takes up too much time. I enjoy having it like in a quiet corner somewhere, either chatting to colleagues or something. Or what I do a lot is just go on the tab and go to New York Times, go to Washington Post, go to different news outlets, but paper outlets, okay? And read what they have to say about Trump or whatever is happening. So this is where, yes, they're also mainstream to a certain extent anyway. Yes, they're losing audiences because you have all these alternatives. You have like Breitbart and what are all these other things called? But I think those are hilarious. I mean, those are just for entertainment value, I think. Corey Jill Schuster. Who is Corey Jill Schuster? The Atlantic, I don't know. I've heard of the Atlantic and I've read the odd piece here and there, but don't do this. Yeah, tried that. Goes to another page within Skype and asks you to download Hangout app, which I have, and it's open. Then says come back here and click link, which I do, but doesn't come. Check Hangout security settings. Oh shit. Because Rob doesn't have his laptop there and he's trying to do this on his phone, which I don't understand. It connects immediately. I don't know why. Okay. Fatima, could we go into that a bit more? What is this? Sam Harris recommends the Atlantic. Okay, well, good for him. Is the Atlantic now going to be my sole source of truth? No, that's. I will repeat. I don't trust any media outlet. Okay, I'm into how Muslims waffle and start justifying something that should go against basic ethics, like what Harrison done last week with the slavery. Yeah, he seems to pick most of his podcast guests from there. Okay. So Harris picks most of his podcast guests from the Atlantic. Okay. Corey runs Ask a Palestinian, Ask Israel, which is very interesting YouTube. Okay, I've never seen this. There's some, I mean, really, on the net, there is a lot of very interesting stuff, okay? Fatima wanted to know about waffling about contradictions, form of contradiction. Yes, it is. The thing what I find fascinating is that there are so many niches, there are so many different aspects, there are so many different minds looking at the same thing, which I find fascinating because I'm all for diversity. I'm all for, like I said, alternatives, different viewpoints. Because I don't think there is such a thing as a single source or the truth or something like this. No, I think it's all relative. Now, what is happening is that Muslims, I don't want to generalize, but most of them are not honest. Most of them will not acknowledge something that is obviously the case, something that is a fact, something that can be shown to be a fact, if it doesn't suit their agenda, if it doesn't suit their agenda. If it suits their agenda, yep, they're fine with that. But the moment it goes against their agenda, the moment it goes against anything that they believe, they will fight it. They will not say, I need to think about this. How does that now change my attitude? Or how can I go and make this gel with the rest of my belief system? They will not do that. They would simply reject it. Like this is the case with what's this idiot, this Sabur, what he's doing, running around and criticizing evolution or the theory of evolution, something he doesn't even understand, because his mind is not made to understand anything scientific. But he can't handle that the theory of evolution can be true, because it could somehow mean that he can't continue believing that Adam was a man created by a god and everybody else came after Adam. He can't accept that. And now he starts exactly what Fatima is talking about. He starts his waffling, and this is where you have this dissonance, because you can't allow that, even though it is a fact, and he's been shown that it is a fact. I mean, Aaron Ra very, very clearly schooled him and showed him where this is a fact. And then what happened is that he simply denied it. So how can you do that? It's crazy. Okay, trying to have a sneaky chat without me, eh? So Boer does seem to know a lot of evolution. No, he doesn't. No, you see, this is the thing. People need to understand that Sabur is bullshitting. He does not know anything about evolution. I made a video, but shit, all my videos are gone. Fuck. Okay, I made a video where I actually exposed this, and I showed that he knows nothing about evolution. All he does is he just quote mines people where he doesn't even understand what these people are saying. And then all he does is he takes expressions which are just mechanisms within evolution. And these are, some people, in some cases it makes absolute sense, in some cases it doesn't. So there are a lot of people who, for whatever reasons, don't like evolution and don't like the theory of evolution. Okay, look, evolution happens, okay, it's a biological fact. The question is whether the theory of evolution, the human interpretation and description of what happens in nature, whether that is correct or not. So this is now the point where someone like Sabur will go off and do what Hamza did with his embryology, and he will go and quote mine. He will take people, he will find people, he will go into literature, and they are amazingly good at this. They will go to Christians, they will go to all sorts of apologists, wherever, and they will go and look for arguments that they can use for themselves, which do not go against their own belief. And then they will go and present these and make them look as though they're facts. as though they are facts. Let me try it again. And they're not. Now, Subur does not understand the theory of evolution. He does not understand the processes of evolution. He does not understand what evolution actually is, and he doesn't know how many ways there are of demonstrating evolution. And I'm talking about speciation as well, not just the superficial. Oh, shit. I'm sorry, it's time that Rob comes in here. I can't talk all the time. Okay, what I'm going to do, I'm going to put the link here, paste as plain text. Now, I do not know whether, let me delete everything after the question mark, because this is what normally causes the problem. Okay, if somebody wants to join in chat, please talk so that I can take a break. Okay. Don't try to effects from fiction. Apparently, 7% of the info was cherry picked by creations, the rest of the report is ignored. Yeah, it sounds like a he spent years of his life trying to debunk evolution and still makes some very basic mistakes in his interpretation. Exactly. This is the point. So if you go, you take anyone. It doesn't matter which one of them you take, and it doesn't matter whether you take Amzat Sources with his embryology, or you take this one now with his embryology, with his evolution. I mean, all you need to do is just go and take a couple of sentences and go and look them up. If you don't already know this, you could just go. It's easy to check. I mean, it's 2017, so it's very easy to go. And I'm not saying use only Google, because a lot of people laugh about Google. But let me tell you, the way that I use Google is I use what is in Wikipedia even, but I don't go to the text of Wikipedia itself unless it's a scientific content. I go to the bottom. I go to the references, and the references are the one area that interests me, because that's where you get the real data. Because the problem with people like Subur is he doesn't understand it. The thing is, he throws out a name. Now, you can't verify whether the name actually said what he claims he says. You can't verify under what circumstances, in what context, and in what way it was said. And you have no clue what it is based on, what the data is, what is the quality of the data of that person used. Is this person actually giving you something that makes sense? Or is this just another idiot like Subur, and they are sort of, and I see this a lot, that they are quoting each other. Because now this guy will go and say, I've got some other guy who says this and this, because Subur, who has a lot of knowledge on evolution, he says this and this. And they go and then play ping pong with each other. I've seen that a lot in 1001 Inventions, for example, where the guy there goes and he quotes himself, and he quotes from a book that he wrote and gives that as a source. Can you briefly touch on the Syriac origins of Islam? Oh my goodness. No, I can't. I can only... okay, to put it in a nutshell, the way that the whole Quranic Arabic started is that you need to go back to the Nabateans. It's always the Nabateans. Because they were the ones who took the Aramaic and the Syriac at the time and converted it. Now, you had northern Arabian Peninsula and the southern Arabian Peninsula. And they were actually speaking sort of different languages, where in the north it was this Aramaic, Syriac, Greek. It was a wild mixture. In the south, you had all the different dialects within the tribes. So we're talking Yemen, Oman, UAE, and things like that. And then what happened? The Nabateans came along and they took this and they made this into their own language so that everybody could communicate with each other. Because then the people from the south tried to trade with the people in the north, and that they had to communicate somehow. So they developed this in-between language, which became Arabic. And this then developed until the Quran came along and codified this. So what you had before the Quran were different versions of the older dialects of the different tribes. And then the Quran came along and made this into Arabic. And this is how the whole thing happened. So is this the explanation of what happened to Syriac now? Well, if you go look at the Umayyads, for example, if you look at Muawiyah, he was in Damascus. He was, I mean, Mecca, Medina, forget about it. That's all fairy tale, okay? What actually happened is everything happened in the north. This is the Fertile Crescent. This is where Mecca was. This is where everything, the origins of Islam, they're all in the north. But Ike is going to talk about that a little bit next week, on Friday, if I bloody well get finished with the translation. So then when when the Umayyads, they then started Islam, and then the Abbasids came along, and they sort of then brought it further along, and then the whole split came with the Spanish and the East, and yes, this is complicated. Anyway, so along with all that, you still had different languages, and then it's only the Quran that then managed to bring all these languages together. Okay. I'm the answer for everything, exactly. Pull-ups, is there really? Hey, Jesus, what did you guys have lives or something? Someone tell a Telegram, hey, pull-ups, this works, I haven't lost so much in ages, watched your videos. Answers one was the funniest. Which video is that? You what, mate? I had to change my name. Too many Muslims calling me a Christian. I don't know why a lot of people call me Indian. This is a legend of Fatima. Actually, I wanted to ask if you could do something in a capacity, teach me how, no problem. Learning myself, a documentary about atheism is what I wanted to capture, just my bits and making it a shorter video. Speaker's Corner, trying to join. Oh, there you go. You can't hear me. No. This is not from the iPad. Missed more fights this week. What do you mean missed more fights this week? Please don't tell me you're talking about the stupid fight thing with Muhammad and Sarah. Okay, is that it? Are we going to call it a day, or do we have any kind of things that questions, suggestions? Paganism. Yeah, we touched on this a couple of. We did an entire Gin&Tonic show on this, where we went into Bellhausen, we went into all these different. I mean, he wrote an entire book on this, the pagan origins of Islam, and it's fascinating. But come on, everybody, running around a black stone, please. I mean, how is that not pagan? Or throwing pebbles at a devil? How is that not pagan? Come on. Speaker's Corner. Joseph, Jew attacked by Muslims 2 weeks running. Speaker's Corner, Joseph. I don't know Speaker's Corner, Joseph, Jew. No. Bellhausen. Here it's Bellhausen. I wish I could hear. He's the specialist in this. Talk about the choice to order the Quran by length. Well, plus minus. They're not even this they manage to screw up. Wellenhausen. There you go. Thank you. I thought it was Bellhausen. Wellenhausen. Julius Wellenhausen. There you go. Yes, that's the one. Thank you, Mr. Juice for Jesus. Josh, you're a star. Excellent. Thank you. Why did I come up with Bellhausen? Documentary, look, top quality. What video are you talking about? Can somebody put a link in here, please? Why is it just me talking, watching the chat? Why can't somebody come here and talk to me? The same guy presented the 5 authors of the government. There's a YouTube. Oh, excellent. Okay, and this is what? This is the video by, hang on, let me just open this and take a look what this is. Okay, atheism everywhere. What is atheism? I commented on this, so I watched it. The usual argument, I'm stupid, I'm dead, therefore God. Okay, there you go. Can you post the link again? Stops. I just did. It seems every time you find some fault in hadith or Sirah, is that a regular? No, it's not. This is just a jaw. How do you, Rob? How do you explain a jaw? This is just, yeah, it's a hangout. It's actually that's what it is. It's a hangout. Just hanging out and just talking shit. Iran has hangouts too with hanging out with the guys. Yeah, I used that in my video. I thought I was being so naughty and nobody picked up on it. Okay, let's see if Rob could join now. Whoa. Actually, I need to make it a habit of asking somebody, okay, why are you asking this question? What is the consequence of the answer? Or you just pussyfooting around or whatever? Because I find that a lot of people just ask questions and are not really interested in the answer at all. They just try to aggravate you. Video description: as the UK becomes an increasingly secular country. Yeah. I wonder where Marshall is. Okay, is anybody going to join, or are we going to call it a day? Then, because if there's nothing else to do here, then we can shut this down. Then I can go back to translating the stuff like. Okay, last chance. Any questions? Anything up? Nobody joining? Nobody doing anything? Rob can't do anything. So Rob needs to get his laptop. I think Rob is trying to join. I don't think Rob is trying to join. I think he's just frantically pushing buttons, and that's it. I don't know why this doesn't work. But he's using this funny all these machines with a bit of an apple missing. Of course, this doesn't work. I don't know why this doesn't work. Okay. Well, I tried Apple, and I must admit, I didn't like it one bit. I felt so like I don't know. It's like somebody was watching you and looking over your shoulder all the time. And that was weird. Juice for Jesus is here. Say something again.
Why are you desperate about nobody joining? Okay, maybe I can help. I don't know, what is this about today?
No, today it's not about anything. Today this was just a spur of the moment, just talking shit. We would have loved to have you on last Friday, when we were talking about some issue in the Old Testament, and we would have loved to hear your input on this, but you were not there.
Yeah, too bad. But Friday is a bad date for me.
What a pity.
Yeah. Well, but what was the question about? Maybe I can answer it now.
I can't remember.
Maybe anybody in the chat?
because we were trying to verify, or we were trying to get some data or some facts on this, and this was beyond our means here. Let's wrangle some Muslim apologies as the topic. No, pull-ups. Does anybody remember what we were trying to talk about? And we said, okay, it's a pity that Juice is not here, because he would have been able to give us some background data on this. But I can't remember what the topic was, or what the segment was when we were talking about this. What facts, what data? Exactly. We didn't have the facts, so we didn't have the data. We were talking about something, and then we said, it's a pity we don't have you here. No, it wasn't the Moses dream. Was it slavery? No. It was something. It was something in the Old Testament where it said something about something, and we all thought that it said something, but we were not 100% sure. And I can't remember whether it was slavery or whether it was the way slaves were supposed to be handled or married or released, or what it was. I can't remember exactly what it was. Talk about good things in Islam, not cultural, but in the terms of idiots. Well, I always say the best thing that I like about Islam is the way that it handles finances. Like I saw again today. I mean, why would anybody go and advertise derivatives or certificates? This is sheer speculation, making it really bad. I mean, why would anybody go and sell a piece of paper which says the price of oil is going to go up, and I'm prepared to pay you $40 for your $35 piece of paper? We're talking about oil. And there, I think the way that Islam works is much better, because it's much more down to earth, because it says, well, every transaction must have something material associated with it. So you can't just go and trade in money. You can't just go and say, I'm going to pay you something. I'm going to pay you $35 for your $30 money. That doesn't work in Islam. And this I think is excellent. That's something I like about the whole attitude there, because I must admit, this whole Anglo-American financial thing with growth and stock exchange, and that, I think it's past our time. I think it's outlived its usefulness, and it should be abolished. So there, I prefer Islam. The thing with growth and sorry, you're very weak. Try again.
Speaker's Corner has joined.
Juice, try this again, because I can barely hear you.
Can you hear me, Stops?
Ah, there you go. Welcome.
Yeah, what a battle, man. I can't get on with the mobile devices. They are just won't link up, or the link you sent me, it goes to another Hangout. And I was talking to Ansar on a separate Hangout from the link you sent me. I don't know how the hell that works. So both of us.
So how did you get here now?
I borrowed my wife's laptop. So it's the only way I was able to get in here.
Follow.
I just can't get the freaking app working. So cool. Thanks, man. Hey, Cheese, how are you?
Well,
I'm too good.
Oh, didn't know you could be too good, but that's good if you are too good.
Rob, do you remember what we said, why we were missing Juice on Friday?
I got cut off, so I don't know what happened on Friday. Was Juice also in there?
There wasn't, because we said, where's Juice? Okay, well, if anyone is, I have a ruling from Islam QA about farting during. Oh, shit.
Easy there. Take it easy.
Oh, and I pushed the wrong button. I couldn't mute myself. I'm very sorry about that.
Hey, all good, man.
No, this is frustrating that it doesn't go away. And this is me who never gets sick. You know, I'm the one who's bragging. I only get a cold every 4 or 5 years, and now I'm getting this stupid thing.
Yeah, every once in a while, eh?
Every once in a while, yeah. Now it's the second one in 1 year. It's crazy. Okay, so Q&A about, I don't think that people should fart during prayer. I agree. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're in a temple or a church. I don't think it's the right thing to do. I agree. Okay, so this is the ruling from Islam. But this is the point. What these guys, the level of detail that they go to is absolutely astonishing. I mean, farting during prayer, cutting the toenail on your left feet during I don't know, water skiing or something. They will find the most amazing things that they will comment on, and they will make a ruling out of this. It's fascinating, really.
Yeah, sorry, I haven't paid attention to this. Is this an Islamic ruling or a fatwa or something that they've come up with?
Well, the Islam QA, do you watch the Islam QA TV station in the UK?
No. Is it on YouTube or is it on proper TV?
It's proper TV, satellite.
No, I don't have a proper TV. I keep getting letters from the TV people saying, where's your license? I say, I don't have a TV. I actually don't have a TV. I haven't used one for like, I don't know, 8 years now or something. Everything I do on YouTube.
Yeah, but don't they charge you? Because what they do in Germany is I need to pay anyway. Because
no, here they basically send you a letter saying, hey, we noticed there's no license at your property. Can you confirm if you have one or not? And I say no. And they say, we're going to send an inspector around. I say, come on over, you're welcome. You're not coming in my house, but they've got these devices where they can stand outside and check if you've got a TV channel. I say, you can come 24 hours a day, anytime you want. You're not going to walk in my house, though, and do it, but you can stand outside because they've got these devices. So anytime they want to come, they're welcome.
No, that's a myth. They don't have these devices.
Oh, I've seen them. I've seen one or two of them wandering around. It's rare.
Yeah, but they don't do anything.
Oh, okay.
Okay, but whatever the case may be, here in Germany, what they do is they say you need to pay anyway because you have a phone, which means that you can access the internet, so you can access the offering, the TV offering on the internet.
All you have to do over there, Stops, is become claim that you're a migrant, and then
then everything's for free. Then everything's different.
I don't know if you've watched that. Because I'm currently in Germany, I should claim that I'm a migrant.
Yeah.
Yes, you'll get everything for free. Yeah. You could disobey the law and just say you're a migrant as well. But then again, depends on whether you look and sound German or whether you sound overseas. So maybe you have to brush up on your overseas accent or something.
Anyway, so yes, there's a ruling on hiccups. There's a ruling on everything. Anyway, this Islam QA, this is a TV station which helps Muslims in the UK live an Islamic lifestyle. And what they do is people call him and they say, well, I've met this girl and blah, 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 but she's a Christian. Now what do I do? Am I allowed to put my finger down her panty and things like that? And they will seriously talk about these things. And they will say, well, you're allowed to go up to 12 inches and not more, well, depending on how long your dick is, and if it's longer, then even less, and things like that. The things that these assholes talk about is frightening. It's absolutely frightening whether you are allowed to take a present to somebody that you know from class and they have some sort of party. Are you allowed to attend and bring a present? And now they go and analyze this. Well, what kind of a Christian is it? Or maybe it's Ahmadiyya. Well, if it's an Ahmadiyya, you can have this kind of a present. If it's a Christian, this kind of a present, and this. It's absolutely mind-boggling what these people do and what kind of problems Muslims have in this world. It's frightening to think that you are a Muslim who doesn't know, who doesn't have a ruling on something. Because if you come to a house without a door, you don't know what to do because you have been taught that you need to knock on the door. Yeah, but now there's no door and you are lost. And he will go into mental overload because there is no door that he can knock on. It's crazy.
To me, this is entirely logical, or at least consistent.
It is consistent, absolutely. But you need a ruling for every single thing.
If you believe that everything what you do decides whether you go to Gehenna or what is the other thing?
Jahannam. Jahannam or Jahannam?
Well, let's say hell and heaven. So, and every single thing is important because so every minor or whatever, and you risk the chance to mess up your entire afterlife just with I don't know, giving somebody the wrong hand.
Yeah, exactly. So if you are told by your imam, remember after you've been to the toilet, zip up your pants. Yeah, but now you're buying pants which don't have zips. They have buttons. Now what? You're stuffed.
In this particular thing, I don't. In this particular case, I don't think you are. But I don't think it's crazy. I don't think it's crazy. It's just the real crazy thing is the attitude that there is some piece of scripture or several pieces of scripture that have described this ruling. That have described how to live your life. You weigh the every letter of the Quran in gold. If you look out for the tiny hints in every situation of your life, to make these decisions, what to do in case, I don't know, you have half a zipper and half buttons on your truck.
Then you're really in shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like what Pulat is saying, I think you can't talk with your butt facing the Qibla. This is exactly the point. Now, I'm trying for the last 2 years or something, trying to make a video, Mecca, where art thou? Where Ike provided me with the artwork and everything, and I still haven't made the video, showing that if you if you're in some part of Canada, for example, you can face Mecca in 3 different ways, but you can never face Mecca because Mecca is actually on the other side of the globe. And what all you're doing is you're facing some point in space. But if you go and you face Mecca or the direction along which Mecca is, if you follow a rum line or something, your ass is automatically facing Mecca. So how are you going to win? You can't win. You must lose. Because it's not a flat earth.
Yeah, but then I don't think that the people who are dealing with these rulings now are that stupid. Well, actually, there are some people who are that stupid who actually claim that the earth is flat still. But usually, then you just redefine what is meant. You say, yeah, it was in the language of the desert Arabs back then, but what is actually meant is you have to face Mecca in a how do you say it? Geodesic? Geodetical line.
This is a rum line. A rum, you either have a rum line, or it depends what you want to do.
So you have to face Mecca such that you look there in the direction of the shortest path to Mecca.
No, this is exactly my point. If you, for example, if you're in Canada, and I found a place in Canada, if you are living there, you can either go via the North Pole, then go through Moscow and then down to Mecca, or you can, oh yes, that's my voice, or you can face, you can go
where it's
south,
ambiguous.
and then if you follow southeast, then that is the direct line to Mecca, go across the globe, or you can go the other way around. You can face southwest as well, and you will also arrive there.
And it would be both the shortest way?
It's always the same thing.
Same distance?
Because you are in Canada and it's exactly on the other side of the globe.
All right. It's ambiguous then.
Absolutely.
So what should you do? What should you do?
If you're living there, you can't go to the toilet. On top of which, it's in Canada, so you're going to have a couple of days where the sun doesn't set or doesn't come up in winter or whatever. So you can't fast. You can't pray 5 times a day. You can't do any of the prescribed things that you're supposed to do either. It's such a mess.
So you were talking originally because obviously I haven't.
Sorry?
No, I spoke over Cheese there. Cheese, go ahead.
Sorry, I have to pause for a second.
Okay, no worries. Just mute yourself there, or I'll mute you. Oh, you are. Cool. So obviously you've been chatting about some of the laws that have, because I obviously haven't been on, so I've missed the first bit. Some of the laws that are being instituted, or is that what you've been chatting about?
No, we've been talking about different things. We've covered like 50 different questions, just talking shit, where people said, okay, like Syriac and the languages and the origins and blah, blah, blah. And so
okay.
How are apologists reacting to this and things like that?
Yeah, because I've seen, again, I mean, just on a slightly different topic. I mean, obviously, I've watched a few of the latest videos because I haven't been down to the park for 3 weeks now. I've had work and other bits and pieces going on. Hopefully, I'll be down this Sunday. But again, I'm noticing that, and I'm being charitable, I'm noticing that the level of discourse and intellectual debate is slipping.
Oh, yeah.
Not that it was particularly high to begin with, but it just seems to be slipping down. I don't know if you saw the conversation with Ty and Hijab, the Hebrew Israelite fella, and Tall Hijab. That's over on Content Over Everything's channel, I think their name is.
I don't watch that. I mean, that to me is bullshit.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because he's a bit
like the intellectual Fox News.
Yeah, I don't know what his sort of thing is, what his position is, the channel itself. But there's a lot of that going on, and so he accused Ty.
Drama queens.
Yes, and the thing with Ty is, again, for him, it's rhetoric. He doesn't get to the point. He'll say the same thing about 10 times over just to try and make it sound better for the audience. And he's coming there to teach everybody. Nobody's at his level, so he comes there and he has to descend to everybody else's level, which is rather arrogant, I'd say. But hey, that's his position. But he called out Hijab as being dirty-mouthed and that sort of thing. Ty is this black Israelite guy, T.Y., black Israelite fella. So he called out Hijab for being I think dirty mouth or some words to that effect, which like. So it was no intellectual conversation there, basically. It was just one calling names and the other one not liking it.
Well, they don't go to Speaker's Corner, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, and I'm just noticing that a lot. I'm actually sort of working on and off on a video here with a certain regular at Speaker's Corner who's been educated on a few things, and then you hear him in another video saying the exact thing that he's been educated on, which, from my point of view, is intellectually dishonest.
Just as I'm missing out on
doesn't feel like they have been educated. So
I'd go out to the Speaker's Corner like every weekend, really. I mean, it must be real fun.
Yes, I'm sure you'd have fun if you ever come and work over here. And you got down there. That would be fun for you. But again, I noticed, it's the same thing though.
Yeah, it becomes a community after a while. It becomes like a group of people, and then you know each other. You acknowledge each other. Yes, it's correct. And then you start getting to know, what the people are saying and how to react to them. Don't the Salafis have that sword dance? No, okay, that's you. No, hang on. You need to distinguish between a dance and a ritual. So yes, they have a ritual where they do all sorts of funny things, but it's not a dance. You're not allowed to dance, not for pleasure anyway. Remember, music and dancing and all that is all haram because, and this is the funny thing, there's some obscure mention in the Quran which says that idle talk is to be avoided. Now, this idle talk is then taken in the hadith to mean that anything that is not beneficial for God is idle talk. Anything that is not to be considered something that is worthwhile doing for the God is then idle talk, and therefore music, singing, and dancing are not allowed unless it's beneficial for a God. That's why all the nasheeds are beneficial for a God. That's why they're allowed. All the others are not. I mean, it's really stupid, really. It's absolutely ridiculous that some small part of a sentence somewhere in the Quran, which is hidden away somewhere, can have such like a huge impact on everybody's lives, that every Muslim now needs to adhere to what some idiot said 1,000 years ago, some old man said 1,000 years ago about something that he thinks he can see in the Quran, which is not even there. Why is it only the daf drum is allowed in nasheed songs? I have no idea. You will probably, I mean, there's always the same thing. You will find some guy somewhere finding a hadith where Muhammad mentioned something about somewhere, or somebody showed him something, or he smiled when he saw it. And now if he smiles when he sees it, then it's good. Then it's halal. Then you're allowed to use it. But if he doesn't do that, no, forget. And also, this is the funny thing in Islam. You have the Sharia ruling that everything that is not prohibited is allowed. Okay, this is what some scholars say. But unfortunately, it doesn't always work that way, because it only works for things where they think that you're allowed to do that. But as soon as they think you're not allowed that, it doesn't hold water anymore. Then they will find something else which says, well, actually there it's prohibited, even if it doesn't explicitly say that it's prohibited. This is it's fuck up, really. What do you guys think about Imam Tawhid? I don't know. Most of the bodies have very strict criteria for hadith authenticity, unless it comes. No, not really. No, this is bullshit. Remember, hadith always consists of two parts. The one is the isnad, is the chain of narration, and the other one is the contents itself. Now, where is this isnad? Where is this chain of narrators? Where is it documented? Where do you find the names? How do you know that the hairdresser of Muhammad, who heard him say this, actually related this to his niece, who then transmitted it to blah, blah, blah? Where is the name of that niece, and how do you know that she's reliable? And where do you have the biography of that niece? This is a load of bullshit. These are fairy tales that are made up. I can make any hadith, and I can add some names and Arabic sounding names, and then I say, and Abu Huraira narrated that Muhammad said X, and that's it. How are you going to prove me wrong? You can't. I'm just going to put some names there and say, there's the whole isnad. It's now the scientific proof that this hadith is authentic. Why it is not in Bukhari? Well, he must have had a bad day. But it's it's bullshit. It's just fairy tales.
Is it really so that you can't verify the isnad?
No.
Because I remember from in the old shows, Klingshore was saying something about this hadith about Muhammad marrying Aisha at, I don't know, what was it, 6-9 years?
Yeah. The other one was 17.
Yeah, and then he spoke about some Western scholar who actually did some research into the isnad, into some documented isnad, and realized that that's one of the few hadith that he could actually trace back.
You can't trace it back. How are you going to trace it back?
No, I don't know, because whenever I open, I don't know, Bukhari or whatever, it says narrated Abu Huraira, and then actually any other for.
Yeah, but 80% of all hadiths are by Abu Huraira.
Yeah.
What we did is we did a show with, there's a Dutch guy who actually did some research on this. And he developed a diagram, and he showed what percentage of hadiths are being narrated by whom. And you can see that Abu Huraira, for example, is a bottleneck, because almost all the hadiths go through Abu Huraira. Now, if you go and you count all the hadiths, and you now put them into relationship with the lifetime of Muhammad, it doesn't work. Because he must have been saying things 24/7 for, like, I don't know, 800 years or something. No, it was some ridiculous number. If you were to get to all the hadiths and they would all turn out to be authentic, so that doesn't work. So he then did some research on this and said, okay, let's look at the real narration isnad, the way that it works. And he found out that there are 6 or 7 bottlenecks where you have the same name coming in over and over and over. Can you now verify this? No, you cannot. Because if you have the name of Abu Talib or somebody who has narrated a lot of these things, how are you going to verify that Abu Talib actually existed, who he was, and that he actually heard what he heard, and that it was correct, and that he actually then passed on the exact words that he had? You can't. It's impossible. This is a claim. They are just making claims that Muhammad existed, that somebody was there to listen to what he said, that this was all happening in Mecca, and then this was transmitted over, I don't know how many generations, over 300 years before it was collected. That's all. It's a claim.
You just have to realize you are not as knowledgeable as you should be for hadith science.
Yeah, of course. Never.
Yeah, well, But it works with because what actually works is then when they say narrated Aisha, then the Sunnis, no, the Shias don't listen to this hadith whatsoever. So then it's with this. If it's been narrated by the other party, so then they don't trust it.
Yeah, but they have the same stories. I forgot the names. There are 4 or 5 people with the same thing.
Right.
Because the thing is that the Quran in itself is useless. Okay, what can you see in the Quran? There's nothing there. Where do you circumcision? Is circumcision in the Quran? No. So why are all Muslim men circumcised? Where does it come from? Well, hadith. Well, are Iranian men circumcised? Sure. Where do they get it from? You know, it's similar. But the Quran doesn't tell you anything about Islam. It's always the secondary texts which do.
Yeah, sure. But it tells you that, I don't know, this guy, Abu Lahab, that he should be wiped out and whatever, and his wife should be dishonored. I don't know exactly the wording, but this is the very important stuff, and it's in there.
Yeah, but that's it. It doesn't say anything. Sorry, anything about the sons of Abu Lahab. It doesn't say anything about Abu Walid and all those other guys. It doesn't mention them.
Fair enough. No, I get it. It actually it relies on you to already know it all, just to recap.
You need to know the story. You need to accept that there's a God, and that's why nobody even explains Allah. Nobody explains God, because they all understand God. The same way as you get different gods in the Quran, and the Quran acknowledges there's 5 different gods in the Quran. Now, how can the Quran talk about 5 different gods if there's only one God? Doesn't make sense, does it?
5 different gods in the Quran. What do you base it up upon?
There's 5 gods. There's the 3 Manat al-Utsa and Manat al-Utsa and
the Satanic verses, or are they?
Those are mentioned in the Satanic verses, for example. Yeah. What's the other one? Oh goodness, there's 5 of them. I just remember this. I don't know the names. I've forgotten the names.
Where's actually
Quran concerned about itself. And next one, I'm reading what can someone post a Hangout link, please? We've already done this 50 million times. Lol Abu Lahab, exactly. It is a lol because it's so stupid, because nobody understands. I mean, can you tell from the Quran what Abu Lahab did or who he is and why he's treated so badly? No, of course not. Ansar says, I'm as quiet as shit. I've never seen shit quiet. Stop spamming. I got hadith for you about Abu Huraira. Sunnah.com, Bukhari, but that's not what the Quran says.
Actually, this is a very interesting one. It's about Abu Huraira saying, you people claim that Abu Huraira narrates many narrations of Allah's messenger. With Allah will be our appointment. I was a poor man and I used to stick to Allah's messenger, contented with what will fill in my stomach. And the Muhajirin, immigrants, used to be busy trading in the markets, and the Ansar used to be busy looking after their properties. One day I heard Allah's messenger saying, who will spread his rida? A garment covering the upper part of the body. Till I finished my speech, and then fold it, rub it over your body, in which case he will never forget anything he had heard from me. So I spread my garment, which I was wearing, and by him who sent Muhammad with the truth, ever since, I have never forgotten whatever I've heard from him, the Prophet.
So he was with him 24/7.
Yeah, something like that. So he was unemployed, basically. And, no, that reads to me as if I was to invent a hadith, if I was to forge something, then I would anticipate the questions of why are all the hadith narrated through Abu Huraira, and I have to legitimize Abu Huraira retrospectively. So I would also make up a hadith like that.
Yeah.
It's like it's very difficult to. That's actually the basic problems of Islam and also of other religions. You have a source that has to sign itself, so that has to authenticate it or legitimize itself. And
yeah, but it's funny because if you look at now the hadiths, you look at the contents, be that as it may, whether they are authentic or not is one story. But look at the contents now. I mean, the Quran says you need to do wudu. Okay, you need to do some ritual where you can take sand or water, doesn't matter what. You just need to make some movements. What movements do you make? Well, the Quran doesn't tell you. So what do you need? Well, you need the hadith. So you go to Abu Huraira. Did he watch Muhammad do something? Absolutely. And then you have it in the hang. Oh, shit, it's starting again. No.
the speaker.
Okay. And then you go and you read this, and you see that in a hadith it says, yes, Muhammad washed his hands, and he washed his arms, and he washed his armpits, and he washed behind the ears and the nose, and blah, blah, blah. And he did this 2 times. Okay, great. So this is the instructions. But then somebody else says, did you do wudu? Yeah, I did this. I did this 2 times. No, but you're just supposed to do it 3 times. No, it says 2 times. No, here in the hadith it says 3 times. And choose Bob. There you have the hadith which says do it 3 times. And then the guy next to you says, no, both of you are wrong. It's not 2 times or 3 times. It's actually 4 times. Because look, here you have an authentic hadith and it says do it 4 times. Now, what the fuck do you do? How many times do you make these movements to please your Allah so that you get the maximum points? Otherwise, it will not be considered in your points scale. And then what? Then you might go to hell because you followed the wrong hadith. Now what?
Exactly. Yeah. Difficult positions you have. But then you can listen to your local, I don't know, well, I'm talking bullshit because this is a bullshit chat, so I'm talking bullshit. I'm not verifying anything I say, just extrapolate from what I know in how it works in Judaism. So if you have contradicting information about the law, then you have to ask your local or maybe the rabbi you trust. Or I think in Islam it is you ask the imam or the sheikh you trust.
Or Islam Q&A, call the TV station.
Oh, exactly. If you trust them more than any person you can have some FaceTime with, yeah.
So there you go. Okay, anything else, or should I go back to translating Ike stuff?
Well, Speaker's Corner is now twice in the
Yeah, I don't know what's going on here, man. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm dropping all the time off the internet. As soon as I go into a Hangout, I'm getting dropped at some point.
I wonder why.
No idea. I'm trying to get hold of Virgin Media, but every single time it happened on Friday, it's happening again. Every time I'm on a Google Hangout, at some point, the router just reboots here, and I get kicked off the internet. Suddenly, I can't hear you guys, and then I know I've been kicked off.
But it's only with Google Hangouts.
Seems to be every single
That's
time.
odd.
Yeah. So sorry, I don't know what you're doing. I obviously can't. I don't know where you are, what you're chatting about, because obviously I'm having troubles trying to just get online.
Yeah. No, we're just chatting. I mean, at the moment, this is not. This is nothing substantial. It's just chatting about what Islam is. So we're doing the opposite what Islam QA does. Oh shit! I hate it.
Yeah, I just saw the free will argument again with Hamza and Sarah. I think it's an older one on one of the channels, and it was some guy. What's his name? Abbas. I think his name is Abbas, something like that. Trying to explain the free will.
He's Dawa, isn't he?
Yes. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Gone very grey hair. I didn't remember him being as grey as he was, but anyway. Yeah, so he's trying to explain to Sarah free will. Now, Christians have got quite an elaborate way of trying to get out of the contradiction. Muslims just, it's like a bull in a china shop, obviously. There's no nuance there. And they just ignore the contradiction, just flat out ignore the contradiction. If God is omniscient, then from his position, we can't have free will. this to them is like they just delete this completely, and they just go to as if God is forcing. Is God forcing us to do anything? That's the term you use. So it's like saying, how tall is Tuesday? You know, it's a non sequitur. It's like incoherent. It's not a non sequitur. It's incoherent, which is a bit frustrating. I mean, it's so obvious. Whereas Christians have attempted to make an effort to, you know, make God be able to do all kinds of wonderful things to avoid the contradiction. The Muslims don't really have an argument. They just ignore your position. I don't know if you've come across this. You've probably done videos on this, Stops, I'm imagining. So I don't know. I mean, if a Muslim comes to you and says, yeah, it's no problem, you know, Allah, you know, free will and omniscience aren't contradictory, you know, what is your response? So I'm keen to know if it's different, and if so, how? What would you say?
What I do is I run them through this step by step. In other words, I don't make the argument, I let them do it.
Yeah.
So I let them construct a scenario and then say, okay, tell me now, scenario one, do this and this. Is it possible? Yes. Now do the opposite, try this, do a validity check, and let them run through it themselves. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
Oh, okay. So pretend I'm a Muslim because I want to hear your version. You might have a better or different way of doing it, because they just ignore it when I explain it to them. It's like a child who you are explaining something and they just ignore part of the conversation or part of it, either willfully or just because it doesn't compute or whatever. And so, you know, they carry on talking past you like you haven't made a point.
Yeah. Well, I use different approaches. I think the standard one that I use is, imagine if you are on a country road and you want to go and have a McDonald's a burger, and you come to a fork in the road and you decide, you need to decide now, do you want to go to McDonald's or do you want to go to Burger King? So either the left or the right. How do you decide? Well, I prefer McDonald's, so I go to the left. Okay. But now, does your God know that you are going to go to the left because you prefer Burger King,
Yes,
McDonald's?
Yes, they would have to say yes.
And they will have to say yes. And I say, okay, now suddenly you've got a buddy with you who says, yeah, but hang on, I've got coupons for Burger King. Shouldn't we rather go to Burger King instead of McDonald's, because there we can save because we've got the coupons? So you change your mind. Does your God already know this?
Yes, so he knows that you were going towards McDonald's, but then at some point on the journey towards McDonald's, he knows that you're going to change your mind.
Okay, where's your free will?
Oh, okay. So the Muslim response is, well, is God forcing you to change your mind?
Yes.
How is he forcing you?
Because it's written down by the pen.
Okay, but is he doing something that you would understand as being forced to do it?
No, but would he know in advance that what it is that you are doing, that you are going to do it?
Yes, he would know, but he's not forcing you.
No, it's not the forcing. It's, can you decide something that God does not know?
No, you can't. They would all say that.
Okay, there you go. End of story.
Correct. End of story. However, they will go back and say exactly what I've just said to you now. But that doesn't stop your free will, because God's not forcing you, therefore you have free will. That's literally their argument.
Okay, I haven't heard that one yet.
Yeah.
Because all right, catching it now, I would say, where is the force? It doesn't talk anything. It doesn't say anything about force. It doesn't. There's no talk here about forcing. It's about a will. You do not have free will because you can't suddenly will yourself to fly. Number one, that's impossible. So number two, we are already restricting free will to human capabilities and human logics.
Yeah, so, sure. But everybody would agree with that.
No, they don't.
Oh, really?
This is the point. A lot of people, like, it's not in the essence. I mean, if you talk about, can God create something indestructible? No, it's not in the essence of God to construct something indestructible. You see, this is how they try and get around it.
Yeah, but that's not quite the same thing, because then you're limiting his omnipotence.
Okay, and now if he goes and says, okay, because he's not forcing you, there is nothing here about force. It is just you want to decide whether you want to go left or right. Can you decide left or right on something that your God does not know, not force you to do, but know that you are going to do it? It's not the forcing, it's the knowledge.
Correct. But they say, here's what they say. They say knowledge, and they use there's an equivocation going on here, which is, but they go, knowledge does not equal force, and if he's not forcing you, then you've still got free will. That's the way they understand it.
So in other words, there is something that you can do that God does not know?
No.
Okay, so how can you do something that God knows that he doesn't know? that's a contradiction in itself.
Yes, it's baffling to me. They just, I don't know whether they don't get it or they just ignore it. But for me, all they say is, as long as you're not being forced in the sense of like somebody's physically directing you with like, I guess some kind of force will, invisible will that's like pushing you like a ghost or something, then you've got free will. Which is just, you know, it's like a facepalm moment for me. And I'm not talking about people who really don't know, have never been, you know, exposed to this. I could understand if it was the first time a Muslim ever heard this, it might be a bit difficult. Like anything, the first time you hear something, you go, oh, well, I've got to think about it, which I'm totally fine with. But these are people that have been doing this for years, and this is the response. I mean, I posted a link in the chat there about this. I wonder if it's still there. No, it's not that one.
Does their God have free will?
Yes, their God has free will. They would always say that, of course, yeah. However, that's a very good point. Omnipotence and omniscience are contradictory. There's a very good video on this. Yeah, there's a very good video. Find it.
Because you can't do what you don't know you're going to do. So it's stupid.
Yeah, the whole thing of...
If I could interject there. I'm sorry, can I interject there the illustration of the free will problematics before you move on to the omnipotence and omniscience? So I've heard actually an illustration that tried to convince that the free will is not really taken. So it works like that imagine a very high mountain, and God is standing on the top of it and looking down. And you have a road around this mountain, and it's quite narrow. And there's only one car that can pass through it. And you have two cars going really fast on the along this along the foot of the mountain, so like in a circle, and they're going towards each other. And the observer on the top sees the cars and knows that they're going to crash if they continue that way. But the cars, they don't see each other. They theoretically have the possibility to stop at any time, but they see no reason to. So they kind of exercise their free will not to stop, and the observer from above sees that they are going to crash. So that way you can. That's an illustration of the example of having perfect knowledge, so sort of omniscience that cannot be changed without actually interfering with the free will of the people that are driving the cars. So
the problem comes in not with, okay, so here's where the equivocation comes in from my point of view, and I think Stops has highlighted that as well. I'm not interested in what people think they have. Not interested at all about what we as humans think we have. We are limited, we're fallible, etc. So I don't care what we think we believe. We're not omniscient, therefore, whatever we think we have is irrelevant. The point really is there a contradiction between God's omnipotence, in other words, knowing everything that's going to happen, and him knowing that we have free will? That's all I'm interested in. Because they subtly, or maybe not so subtly, equivocate between what we have as free will and what God knows we have. That's the difference for me. I don't care what we have, because we think we've got free will because we just don't know what's going to happen next. Even from the theist. The theist would agree that he doesn't know what the next thing he's going to think or say is. He would agree that. And so from his point of view, he thinks he's got free will, and it's really because he's ignorant, we all are, of the greater, knowledge out there, let's call it. But from God's point of view, the moment he knows everything that we're going to do, from his point of view, you cannot then say that he's got free will, and it's really because he's ignorant, as we all are. Welcome. I'm just going to answer. Sorry, because I can hear you there. So Ansar's on there. So the moment he knows that the moment he's omniscient, then you can't say that he also knows that we have free will. What you could say is he's omniscient and he knows that we've got an illusion of free will. But the theist can't say that either, because the moment they accept that he knows we've got an illusion, which is the only option you can really have, apart from some kind of metaphysical jumbo bumbo that a few Christians try. The Muslims don't even think about it. They can't try that. So they just go with, hey, we think we've still got free will. So they jump from God's knowing we don't have free will to the human beings, and they talk about human beings because there's an obvious contradiction with God. But the moment you accept that God knows that we don't have free will because he knows what's going to happen, now you're in a much worse position, because now it's essentially the metaphor that I've heard, or the analogy is, we're a puppet as long as we love our strings. We're free, sorry, the proper analogy is we are free, or we think we're free as long as we love our strings. So, we got strings up there, but we think we're free, as somebody controlling the puppet in a sense. Now, it's not control in the sense of like physically a being that's pushing you, but so you've got a sense of like, oh yeah, I'm free to do whatever I want, but in fact the being already knows what you're going to do, and you can't do anything different from what the being already knows. And so from the being's point of view, either you're omniscient or you have free will. You can't have it both from God's point of view. That's all I care about. Because the moment they bring in human beings, that's a waste of time. We don't need to talk about human beings. We only need to talk about the contradiction with God himself.
I have to agree with you on that, because I also believe in that we have the illusion of free will. So the problem is I never followed this argument, this illustration that I presented before, a couple of minutes before. I never followed it from that side. I never played the apologetics on that side deep enough to be able to convince myself otherwise. So I really can continue arguing on the apologist side, on the advocate of free will and omniscience of God at the same time. Yeah. So
it's all we need to do is press home the point. Now, as I say, the Muslims in Speaker's Corner in particular, because that's mostly the people I speak to. I've heard, if you Google William Lane Craig, he's got a very fancy metaphysical explanation of how God can get around this contradiction. But again, if you just listen to it, you just go, this guy's making stuff up to try and get around it. It's it sounds quite, I guess, clever if you can just make stuff up, which obviously Christians are very good at, and it sounds very philosophical. But the Muslims they just equivocate, and it goes straight to our free will. And I keep reminding them, I'm not interested in our free will. I just want, if you accept there's a contradiction between omniscience and God knowing we don't have free will, then you've got to accept that either he's not omniscient, which they can't really do, because then he could be wrong about something, and that we can't have, or you've got to accept that there's an illusion. And if that's the case, then judgment and going to hell, that's all out the window. So, there's a big problem here, but they intentionally or not intentionally just ignore this completely. And I haven't actually found a Muslim yet that will deal with this. Maybe they can't. Maybe, literally, I don't think they can anyway. But those that I've spoken to just go to this whole knowledge thing, just go to this, well, he's not forcing us, therefore we've got free will. And that's, I'm sorry to say, a very infantile way of looking at it, especially when I've done my best to explain this to them. It's just like they ignore it completely.
Yeah, it's not straightforward to understand that a perfect omniscience, not the knowledge of some guy from the street or anybody, but the perfect omniscience. So the most perfect knowledge that cannot be altered is a sort of force like gravity, or some force that actually is able to force you not to change the content of this knowledge.
Yes, correct. I mean, he knows everything you're going to do. They all admit that. They can't not admit that, because then they're obviously giving up omniscience. So, as Stops quite rightly said, does God know everything you're going to do? The fork in the road. So you now start to take the left fork, but halfway through, your buddy says, "Hey, I just remembered I got some vouchers. Let's go to Burger King." And halfway down that fork, you turn right. God knew all of that sort of stuff. So they will all accept that.
I think Ansar has joined us. Maybe he wants to say something.
Yeah, go for it, Ansar.
Hello?
Hey, buddy, go for it.
Okay, right. Sorry, I was just checking to see that you could hear me. I'm using the laptop, so I'm a bit unfamiliar with how it works.
We can all hear you, but nobody can understand you.
Is that right? No, okay. Yeah, basically, I'm happy to just listen. I mean, this is an interesting topic. I know Rob is something of authority on this. I really like a lot of the things he comes up with, and I learn a lot every time we talk about this. So yeah, I'm happy to just listen for now.
I'm definitely no expert, and I don't claim expertise on anything. So I just listen to people and I think about some things myself. And I mean, other people have thought about this probably much more deeply and much, gone into this a lot more than I have. So I'll be interested.
It could just be that I'm at the level where when we talk, you kind of always know exactly where I'm coming from, and then you always tell me something, and then after a while, it takes me a couple of days or a couple of weeks, I realize that's exactly what I needed to hear, and then you can just sense when you kind of step up a level in your understanding, and in our conversations, that's happened to me a number of times. That's why I said that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and it's the same for me when I listen to people like Ozzy and other people. I was listening to a conversation today on morality, and I got a distinction on morality as well from the philosopher Dr. John Shook, Shook. So they did an hour and a half thing that I sort of listened to. I always listen to stuff on YouTube at double speed, because if they're speaking slowly enough, you can still get the whole thing in at half the time. So always, if you can, listen to YouTube quicker. And if you're on a mobile phone, here's a quick tip for you. Where's my phone? If you're on an Apple one, I don't know about other people, get something called ProTube, PROTUBE, ProTube. It's about £2 or whatever. But the beauty of ProTube as an app, if you're on your mobile or on an iPad, is that you can speed it up and you can play it in the background. So you can minimize it. You can carry on doing something else, or you can just put it in your pocket, power it off, and you can still hear the entire debate, because you don't really need to see debates. You just want to hear it. And so ProTube, PROTube, will allow you, because YouTube doesn't allow you on the app as far as I can see. You can obviously do it on any browser. You just click in there and choose 1.25, 1.5, or 2x speed. But if you wanted to listen to things quicker, it's brilliant.
Wow, some good tips. So that's how you learn so much.
Yeah, it's just how you learn stuff quicker, or listen to stuff much quicker if you're on a phone. And then talking about morality of the atheist is hilarious. Yes, it is, because this is the distinction. So I think we're all clear on free will. There really isn't an answer to this. They've got to kind of dance around this, or ignore it, or do whatever, or try some kind of amazing metaphysics that Craig will dream up. But Muslims don't really, not that advanced in that sense, and probably wouldn't be able to argue it very effectively either. So they just stick with, I'll ignore it, and I'll just go with, oh well, as long as he's not forcing me in the sense that he's like directing me physically, then I've got free will, which of course is not the point of the discussion anyway. But then they walk away going, do you know what, we've got free will, and that's like a child putting his fingers in his ears and not listening, or not wanting to listen, because now you'll take away his toy or show him that Santa isn't real or whatever. But the moral argument is really one that I'm quite interested in. And I was listening again to philosophers, and most philosophers that I've listened to, none of them are moral relativists. And I noticed many of my atheist colleagues seem to want to go the moral relativist route, or a version of that. And I was listening to Dr. John Shook. I was listening to Alex Malpass. I've listened to Ozzy Mendes. Those are just three. I'm sure there's plenty of others. Daniel Dennett, whoever it is, on the morality side of it, most of them don't really have, or don't accept, relativism. So they have some other version, whatever that might be. I don't know all the different versions, but very few of them have that. And the distinction that I got today was, from my point of view, I accept the Sam Harris model, the moral landscape, and I posted something in a special group that I'm in, and I wanted feedback from some of the guys there. Dave is in that group. Obviously Dave's got a different view, which is great. I love listening to different views, because Dave doesn't fully accept the Sam Harris version, which is the well-being of conscious creatures. And the main objection that I see people have to this is, well, how can you argue that we should objectively view the well-being of conscious creatures as the moral benchmark, or why should we accept that? What happens if somebody else comes along and says, no, do you know what, I think morality should be based on, I don't know, the pain of everybody, for example. So what argument can you bring to convince me that I should, or ought, would be the way to speak about it, that I ought to value well-being? Now, from a philosophical point of view, they may have a small point. in the following sense, which is what Shuk said. There's a difference between ontological objectivity and epistemological objectivity. Now, I'm not an expert, but basically what Shuk was saying is that as long as every human on the planet agrees with something, so let's use physical health, he used farming was his example, as long as every human that's rational and that can think rationally accepts that farming is the practice of tilling the land, let's call it, or health is when we talk about we want physical health, we don't want to be diseased or ill or whatever the case, as long as we all agree, that's epistemological objectivity. He went further and even suggested, but I'm not sophisticated enough to argue from the ontological position. He even went further and said, do you know what, I could argue that we have an objective moral from an ontological point of view. And I went, okay, I would need to understand more about that. But my position is simply, and that's Harris's position, that every human agrees this. If there were no humans, we wouldn't be talking about morality, but B, then there would be no objective. So if there were only rocks and there were no animals or anything that could feel pain or suffer or have pleasure, then there would be no such thing as morality. And morality is not a thing anyway. It's just a methodology that we use to understand. If we accept that every human being, and they do, and if I ask any theist, and we ask enough questions, they will accept that morality at its base is talking about the well-being of conscious creatures. Now, they may talk about it in the hereafter, but it's still well-being, whether it's in this life or, heaven or whatever the case may be. And so from an epistemological point of view, that's all I'm happy with. I'm happy to say that is objective. And now, okay, so how do we work out on this epistemological objective if you accept the well-being? How do we work out what's right and wrong? And there we would turn to science in principle to give us answers, because otherwise we are going on what would we say? We're going on people's views. Just like, do we take a consensus of views? Because the consensus could be wrong. So, and the Muslims will always point to Germany and go, hey, the consensus, and I'm not sure this is accurate, but let's assume that it was, the consensus of Germans was that Nazism and what Hitler was doing was correct. Now, I'm not sure even the consensus or every German did think that.
No, they tried to kill him.
Yes, so there you go. But let's assume that it was. They could probably bring up some other example, so it doesn't have to be Hitler. But the point that they're making is, hey, at a certain time in history, a group of people or a country or population or whatever it is has agreed that something is right. And they've subsequently, over a period of time, come to a point where we now don't think that's right. Be it, marriage of small children or pedophilia or slavery or whatever it might be. And so the question that's asked from Muslim, well, how can you say it's objectively wrong then? And of course, and they've got a point, and I have heard it argued reasonably well. You've got to be quite good at it, but I've heard some atheists argue that, what we could do is we discuss this, we work this out, etc., etc. And what the theist is looking for is some standard, because just we working it out, as in like us all talking about it, for them, that doesn't count, because we could be wrong tomorrow. We could be wrong next week. So next week we could decide that pedophilia is, in fact, it's fine. Not that we would, but that would be their argument. You guys are just discussing it, so it's just a group subjective decision. And so that's where, for me, that's somewhat problematic. But I have heard people who are better at doing that than I am, but I'm still not convinced that you could use that, because that is essentially moral relativism. Now, you may be able to add some things to that to make it more powerful. And I did have that conversation with Phil, Skydive Phil, and he's sort of more, and he did make a better case for it. But when I asked him the same question that a Muslim would ask him, well, how do you know that? How can you say that the Nazis were objectively wrong? His response, and I'm guessing other atheists who are moral relativists will go, well, we could speak to them today, we could rationally work it out with them, we could show that that they're causing harm. So they're quite happy to accept the well-being of conscious creatures. Everybody is, when you really get down to it. Nobody's going to object really. They might try to object, but when we ask enough questions and we get to the bottom layer, every human being who's rational, who can think, will accept that morality is talking about the well-being of creatures, humans, and any other creature that can feel pain. Because the example that Ozzy gave was, well, what happens if you were like Wolverine? You literally, either you couldn't feel pain or it healed instantly. Then if you poked somebody or cut their arm, would that be considered a bad thing? And in his example, he was talking about, well, it could tickle. It'll heal instantly. So that could be a form of greeting. You've got a knife and the two of you chop each other on the arm. You literally, it feels like a tickle because it heals. Would we then call that morally bad? Well, no, we wouldn't, because there's no harm inflicted there. So that would be an example of, or an example really just to illustrate the point that what we're talking about is the well-being of conscious creatures, which involves suffering and pleasure, essentially.
Can I suggest?
Go for it, guys.
Did I speak first? Okay. I was just going to ask, obviously, I kind of think that, well, obviously, we're all moral relativists. We kind of have to be, because we do essentially make up our own minds. The problem with theists is, can I just ask a question first, Rob? To say that the idea of moral relativism is one way of looking at ethics, isn't it obvious then that that's the whole branch of looking at it, in the sense that there's only two ways? One is an absolute moral standard, or a relative one. I don't see the middle ground.
Yes, I guess you could say there's either some form of objective, either ontological or epistemological, or there's a subjective or relative version.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Yes, it's one or the other, essentially. Now, it depends on whether people are prepared to accept. If you, and most of us accept that if every human was asked the question and we all agreed, we were all able to understand whatever language.
That doesn't make it objective. That just means that we would agree for a given time. We don't know what's going to happen in the future, or we don't know that we do actually all agree. Some people might just be going with the crowd.
Okay, so that's a good point. So, but that's why I say, if every human agreed, and they would, if you, here's the caveat, I guess I would say, is that they are rational, they can understand these things, and they could feel pain or pleasure. Now, if you had somebody, and there are human beings that have been born, and I saw an article years ago with the twins who could feel no pain. Now, you might think, wow, literally the pain receptor in the brain had been cut off. So they could still be injured and everything else. So they weren't like a Wolverine or anything. Otherwise, that would be pretty.
But they might think they were.
But they couldn't feel pain at all, just because the receptor was literally, there was a defect in whatever the case may be. We wouldn't include them in a conversation because literally they are not able to. We can't incorporate them because they are an outlier.
But can I just say something here, Rob? And that is that. Don't you think it's very interesting that even this discussion, which is a very philosophical discussion about morality and its nature, boils down to essentially the fact of pain. And when you look at pain, which is a product of evolution, which is a survival mechanism, and probably the most important one, and fear of death and fear of pain. So isn't it interesting that this intersects at this crucial point about it coming down to the ability to determine pain?
Yes, so to suffer or to feel pleasure. If we couldn't feel it like these children, then we would be talking about morality in an entirely different way.
But this helps our assumption about Sam Harris's standard of the utilitarian type way of looking at pain and pleasure in the world. Now this helps because it does lend it some level of objectivity, in the sense that it is derived from physical nature.
Correct. So his additional point, or his entire argument, I've sort of summarized it on the philosophical side, but his main argument is the following. Let me actually bring it up and I'll read it to you so that I don't misquote it. He's put out a challenge on this, and it's obviously slightly different from what I've done. But here's his main. I want to give you the main. Where is it? I just want to bring it up here so that I can actually read it out so I don't misconstrue it. So here's the premise. Let me give you the premise very clearly. It's a very simple premise. Human well-being depends entirely on events in the world and on states of the human brain. Consequently, there must be scientific truths to be known about it. So that's the main premise. Human well-being entirely depends on events in the world and on states of the human brain. Consequently, there must be scientific truths to be known about it. So that's it's to do within the natural world. We're not outside the natural world. We all have brains. And, so the only thing really to talk about is well-being. Is well-being really the benchmark? Or who says you should use well-being as your benchmark? That's really, and he does address that point as well. But that's the main premise. And I don't think anybody can seriously argue that premise per se. So what they have to do is shift over to, well, how do you argue for well-being? And so that's what I've attempted to talk about now, which is the epistemological objectiveness of that well-being, which is every human would agree with this. Once you get down to it, even psychopaths, even people who cause pain would still agree that well-being, whether they could. Now, psychopaths are interesting, aren't they? Because they would go, okay, well, the suffering of others is well-being for me. But that of course, is not. So they are outliers because they're going, well, it serves me. But we if they were rational, we could quite easily show why that's not a moral position to take. Even though they would argue, yes, I feel good when I'm causing pain to somebody else. If they were rational, we go, well, would you be okay with it if it was the other way around? And again, if they were rational and honest, they would have to say, no, I wouldn't. Now, you probably could come across somebody who goes, yes, I don't mind my arm being chopped off or whatever. Again, that would be in my mind like those twins who don't feel pain. You wouldn't include them in. I wouldn't call them fully rational then. So I wouldn't include them in the conversation. It would be somebody. If somebody could argue the point philosophically and go, do you know what? As a rational person who feels pain and pleasure, I'm able to argue that no, well-being is not the standard. There's something else out there. And there I would be very interested if somebody could bring up a different standard. Then I'd be very keen to listen to that. That they could argue for that should apply to humanity in general, as opposed to like one person who can't feel pain or whatever.
I think Kant tried to impose such a standard.
Yes.
But it's to me it's kind of arbitrary in the end. He put an intrinsic moral value into actions, and then you have if this type of actions has a moral value, then it's independent of well-being and independent of consequences that the actions do cause. And then the question that I get with that is, what standards do you use to put some value into the actions? So Kant was against lying and against murdering, but how do you come up with that? That's an arbitrary point in there, as it looks to me.
Yes, I think I'd agree with you there, and I don't think any modern philosopher, as far as I'm aware, and I've only listened to some of my sort of more favorite ones. There could be outlying philosophers, but in general, I'm not sure that the vast majority of philosophers still accept that point of view. Maybe there are people out there and they could argue for it, but I haven't seen that as a general rule that people would argue for, because you're quite right. How does he then say, what's his yardstick for saying that is in fact, or that we should do X and Y? What's the ought there? So I'm...
Yeah. On the other hand, when we use this evolutionary point from Ansar, that pain is something that isn't used to us by evolution, then I think that we can get some objectivity into it. Well, let's say we can get a statistical objectivity by averaging over subjectivity. So, because the question is why you could say that you can come up with a consensus, let's say Nazi Germany, even if, just for the sake of argument, that there wasn't a consensus about murdering Jews and gypsies and whatever. So we start from there, and then we still have a competition of societies. And I think that if we can agree that if there is a society that intentionally eradicates a fraction of itself, then it loses productivity, it loses potential, and it's in a disadvantage within competition with other societies. And by that, especially incompatible moral consensus will stop you from collaborating with other societies that can collaborate with each other because their moral systems are compatible. So by that, in that sense, we would have a society that is causing damage to itself, and such a society would either change its moral system or die out.
Yes, or it would regress backwards. But again, I'm not claiming that that either the moral landscape or any other moral position has got the answers to everything. Certainly in practice, and it may be even in principle. I think you could potentially, with a moral landscape, in principle, if we had a complete understanding of neurobiology, physiology, the cause and effect, everything else, we could, I believe, in almost all cases, come up with an answer from a scientific point of view as to whether something is beneficial or not. But there could be examples where that's not the case. But it's a hard subject. I mean, people have been talking about this for 2,000 years, and consequentialism has got problems in the sense that it's got, which pain is worse, the severe headache of one person or the mild headache of 10? So how do you weigh up that, and if we had a full understanding of neurobiology, physiology, all that sort of stuff, could we get an answer in principle? I think in principle we probably could, but these are very difficult questions. But the theists don't get off the hook by just saying, hey, we've got a moral lawgiver, because all they've been given is a set of instructions they need to follow. They're not really open to using it as a system to judge whether things are right and wrong. They're being told what to do. Now, some theists object to that, and they use modified divine command theory and so forth, where they still have got some kind of choice in there. But for, let's call it unsophisticated theists, and I would suspect most Muslims, they are saying, hey, do you know what? God sent me these instructions down, so this is how I live my life. I don't question them, I just live by them. Because the consequences of not doing so is, damnation in hell. I don't care about what happens here on earth, I care about what happens in hell. So I will follow these. But then you ask them a question. Is it always wrong to lie? Now, I wish, if there's any Muslim listening, I would like a Muslim, before I continue with this, if you're in the chat and you're a Muslim, please answer this question. With your Qur'an giving you divine guidance, let's call it, from a moral point of view, is it always wrong to lie? So maybe we can carry on talking, and I'll come back to that, because I do want, if there are any Muslims listening, to answer that question for me. If God says it's wrong to lie, is it always wrong to lie? Or if God says it's wrong to take a life, is it always wrong? Let's stick with lie. Let's stick with lie, because that's one that'll hopefully get the cogs turning in some minds. Because the is it always wrong to kill? No. Muslims can easily get an answer. Hey, if we're being attacked, we can kill in defense. So my question really is it always wrong to lie? Because clearly somewhere, I'm sure Muslims could point to something, and maybe Stops can tell us if it's true or not, that there's something in the Quran that says you shouldn't lie.
Well, it's contradicting. Yeah,
Oh, is
one,
that?
yeah, the other.
Oh, okay. So sometimes it's right,
guys.
sometimes it's wrong.
I need to say bye to you because I'm getting so tired. I can hardly follow you. I hope that this chat will be recorded and I can follow up later.
But we're not going to carry on long, because I still want to put in 1 hour of translating.
Yeah.
And then carry on tomorrow evening. Otherwise, I'm not going to get ready before Friday.
Yeah, sure. I won't keep doing it every single time. Or I'll maybe invite. I don't want to keep always doing it with Stop. So please friend me on Facebook, and if you want to have a hangout, let me know. And if I've got time, I'll do it with you, because I'm always asking Stops, because obviously we're buddies and we're on Skype and Hangouts, Facebook, and all the rest of it. So somebody else wants to do that.
We are friends on Facebook already. My nickname is in Cyrillic letters. You have accepted mine.
Brilliant. Okay, well, send me a Facebook message. Thanks so much for coming on, Jesus, and keeping Stops company while I had technical difficulties. Hopefully we'll see you again, and obviously we'll have a show on Friday.
Good. As they say it in Arabic, Laila Saida. Good night.
Cheers, bye, children.
Cheers. So Stops, in terms of the lying, what does it say?
No,
broadly speaking.
Okay, let me be precise.
Yeah, you see, there's lots of nice comments coming in here. Friday is going to be a great one. So Stops and Ike, you guys you've got some viewers looking forward to that.
Yeah, why don't you increase the pressure even more?
No, I'm just giving you the nice compliments.
Yes, you know how difficult this is? Here we go. All people of book be not excessive. Confound not truth with falsehood, nor knowingly conceal the truth.
Yeah, that sounds really
Whoso deceiveth will bring his deceit with him on the day of resurrection. Do not work in the snobbish style. And here's a direct one. Avoid, and this is 2230, avoid false statement.
But it doesn't say anywhere. Okay, so one would, again, I think a Muslim could try and find his way out of this. In your view, seems to me that seems to be fairly prescriptive in the sense like don't do it ever. Now, it doesn't say the word ever, but just...
No, it's just avoid. You're right.
So, but does that mean always avoid, or... Because to me, that means always avoid. You don't have to have the word always in there when it's a command like that. But,
yeah, but if you read other ones, then confound not truth with falsehood.
Yeah.
And if you deceive, this deceive will be brought to him on the day of resurrection. So if you take all those in context and if you take the holistic approach, then for me, it's very clear to do not lie.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, it says that if you need to defend yourself and your belief, then you are allowed to lie.
So if you need to defend your belief.
Yeah, this is the old concept which was used by the Shias called taqiyya. This one is, they copied this, and then you found this in the hadith where Muhammad says, in war everything is deceit and lies.
Oh, okay. So that's the get out of jail card.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we need to find another example, because really what I want to find out from Muslims is if the book gives an absolute where they haven't got these get out of jail, because yes, they could try and turn to that. It seems to me the Quran is fairly clear. And if you're not in a time of war, then you couldn't use that get out of jail, but they could still perhaps twist it, or I won't use the word twist it, make it fit some other scenario. So I'm really looking for something where there's no ambiguity at all, where the Quran makes a moral statement that always needs to be followed regardless. And then ask them whether they would in fact follow it regardless.
Well, you have this adultery thing, and there it's always like that you need to flog them, and you're not allowed to show any mercy while flogging them.
So which verse is that?
Oh, yes. No, I'm too tired for that.
Okay. No, because the only reason I ask is because I obviously trust you, but there might be people watching who go, yeah, you're just making this up, it's not true or whatever. That's why I sometimes ask, because it sounds like if you're a Muslim listening, you go, oh no, Stops is just making stuff up. And most Muslims, as you've told me, don't really know the Quran well. So that's why I just asked for it from a reference point of view that people can go and look it up for themselves. But I'll also look up some other ones and see if, I don't know if Ansar's got anything. I'm just looking for a statement that where they are commanded to do something absolutely and there's no way around it. And then all we need to really do is look for a scenario where it would be morally good to not follow that command. And then I want to see what do they do in that scenario.
Well, what is totally unambiguous is that you need to help orphans.
You need to what, sorry?
Help orphans.
Help orphans, okay.
By enslaving them? And after you've killed their parents and siblings?
Yeah, well, it says that you, oh shit, I hate it. 4.3, where it says that you should not take the inheritance of the orphans. Is it 4.3? Oh shit. 4.3, if you don't treat the orphans justly, then marry the women 2 or 3 or 4, 2 and 4, 2 and 3 and 4. and blah, blah, blah. This is repeated, I think, 50 million times in the Quran, that you need to treat orphans fairly and you're not allowed to go and take their wealth from them, and you need to support them. This is what is repeated over and over and over. It's a good thing in Islam that they here the needy are being looked after, in other cases not.
Okay. Okay. I mean, the only thought experiment one could use there possibly, but I'm not that keen on bringing it up really, would be something like, if you knew the orphan, a thought experiment here, because obviously Muslims will go, oh, well, we don't know if that would be the case, but it's a thought experiment to test their morality really, is if you knew one of those orphans, if you knew a particular orphan was going to grow up to be Genghis Khan or some other mass murderer of the time or sometime after that, would you then still give him everything knowing what he's going to do, or would you deprive him, put him in jail, or do something else? And
but then you have the story of the green man, where Moses meets the man who kills a boy, and then Moses says, well, why'd you kill the boy? And he says, listen, you were supposed to trust me and you don't, and yet here you question me, which you said you wouldn't. But this boy would have given his parents grief, and this was sufficient for him to kill him. It's exactly what you are saying. If he had said he will grow up to be Genghis Khan, he would have killed millions. That's why I sort of preempted that. But they don't do that. They say he would have caused them grief by not believing. That's why I killed him.
And then doesn't that go against the sort of teaching about orphans or whatever?
Yeah. But this was not an orphan. This was
okay.
This was not an orphan.
I'll look it up because I need something that's watertight. I need a watertight instruction in the Quran that they've got no way to back out of or jump or bring up red herrings, although that's always possible and likely. But I want a command that they are issued, which they have to follow if they're going to accept that morality is sent down as a list of instructions that they need to follow, and then give them a scenario where they now have to think about whether they would do it. Because now we test if their morality is in fact a moral system or just a set of laws that they're following. Because I think there's a difference between a methodology that helps us decide what's right and wrong and a list of instructions that's sent down that you follow without question because you believe it's from God. And so you would have to then follow it in every case. That's what I'm looking for.
The Quran says several times, don't kill without a reason.
Yeah, but they could always come up with a reason. So I guess we'd have to have a thought experiment. I don't like the kill one because you could always come up with something that would justify killing, which we could do as well, by the way. But really,
I see what you mean. You can't have the absolute. Okay.
Yeah, I want to expose, or I want to get them to think, because at the moment they are going, hey, I've got this ontologically objective moral system, and it's God sent it down in the Quran, and therefore all I have to do is follow that. Now, I don't accept that.
The only thing I can think of is don't have sex outside marriage. Don't have any gods except Allah.
Okay, yes, I suppose, yeah. But now we've got to go, okay, can we construct a scenario where it would be morally good for you to disobey that? That's what I'm needing to find, where, it would be, if you were not, an absolute Muslim in the sense that you did think rationally about your actions, we need to construct a scenario where it would in fact be good. So like the lying ones, to give an example, to prompt this for people to think about.
Yeah, okay, there you can argue it.
But so if it's always wrong to lie, and the classic example is, a murderer came to your door, that you knew that he was a murderer, and he said, is anybody else at home here? And if there is, I'm going to come in and kill them. Would you then lie, or would you tell the truth? They use Nazi, but I don't want to go the Nazi route, because then they can fall back on, oh, it's war, it's under war, so no, we can't. I don't want to give them a backdoor. I want them to think for themselves, to hopefully show them that they don't have a morality. They've got a list of instructions, and they're not really making a decision. So I want to put them in a position where they have to make a decision, where they can't just follow the rules. They've got to think for themselves. What would I do in this situation? Because if it is the case that you would then disobey the laws, then there's a demonstration that what you have is just a set of instructions, like the laws of this country.
When is it beneficial to have sex with somebody outside of marriage?
Unless you want to go and use Shabir's crazy example. I don't know if you remember the one that he used with me, that was just diabolical.
Policeman.
Say again?
Was it something to do with policeman?
With what? Sorry, I can't hear you.
Policeman.
Was it something to do with the policeman when you're driving the car or something?
No. So he uses that for something else, I think. So the example because we were one of the first or second conversation I ever had with him. I asked him, is homosexuality wrong? And he says that's right up until a point, and beyond that point, no. Which is, of course, his typical response. I'm not going to give you a proper response. I'm going to give you sort of a half-hearted response so that
That's what the Quran says.
What's that?
No, then I can't think of anything, not off the cuff.
So basically, he brought up the scenario because he wanted to, and it kind of went on to morality, I guess. But he brought up here was his scenario. Now just let me paint this picture for you, and you can scratch your head potentially. He goes, suppose that you met a woman, you had drinks with her, etc. And
yeah, I remember this.
Oh, you remember this one? Okay, I'll say it for the rest of the people. Suppose you met a woman, you had drinks with her, and she said, "I'm going to kill myself unless you have sex with me." Is it a moral action, and would you tell your wife? So is it a moral act to have sex with a woman who claims she's going to commit suicide, and the only way that you can plausibly stop her is by having sex with her? Number one, is it a moral act? Number two, would you tell your wife?
I don't think it's that difficult a question. If she genuinely was, if that actually was the situation, then I guess of course you'd have to do it. And why would you lie to your wife?
Well, exactly.
You tell her, innit? I had to save a woman's life, and guess what? This is the situation. Why would you?
Correct. And I did exactly that. Firstly, I pointed out the absolute absurdity of the example, because you could lie to her and say, yeah, we're going to have sex, and as soon as she gets undressed, you tie her down to the bed, you call the police or the medical services. So from a practical point of view, it's absolutely ludicrous, which I pointed out. But then I said, okay, I'm going to play your game, no problem. I'm not going to try and escape that. So from my point of view, yes, it's moral. And I would phone my wife and say, you know what, honey? Now, of course, my wife would giggle on the other end, but let's assume that it was like she was going to jump off the building and said, you've got to have sex with me on the ledge here, or I'm going to roll over. And if you try and stop me, I'm going to roll off, or construct some kind of ridiculous, ludicrous example. I'd phone up my wife and say, you know what? I had to have sex to save this woman's life. I hope you appreciate that. And if my wife was loving, which I know she is, she would go, I totally understand. I trust you, Rob, and there was no other way you could do it. But of course, the ludicrousness, you can't escape the ludicrous example. But the point being, but he goes, no, I wouldn't tell my wife, or no, I couldn't do that. And so, that was the example that he was using.
So he'd let the woman die just because he couldn't tell his wife.
So one of two things: either he wouldn't have sex, or he would, but he wouldn't tell his wife.
Depends what the woman looks like.
We didn't get that far. I was, sort of still stunned by the ludicrous example, but I went through with it. And so, I think the whole point was to try and show, my challenge, but that's an example of what Stops was saying. So could you have sex outside of marriage? Paint that ludicrous example, which a Muslim has brought up, and it's on record, it's on a video, and ask a Muslim, what would you do? Because now they can't appeal to their list of commands. Now they have to actually think themselves. Now, what do they do in that situation? Do they allow her to commit suicide, or do they have sex outside of marriage to save her life? Which is the greater good?
And on that bombshell.
Yeah. Appreciate it. Thank you so much, Stops. Answer. I know Stops has got a lot more work to do, and I'm probably going to get an early night. Thanks to all the people who are watching that came on, and we will be, somebody, Sharif is on there. Rob, that's a compulsion to lie. Well, you've obviously heard the example, Sharif, so think about it, Facebook me about it. Thank you all so much. We'll be back on Friday, where we'll have a great show about pre-Islamic history, I guess.
Arabia.
Sorry?
Pre-Islamic Arabia, I think.
Pre-Islamic Arabia, yeah. So kind of history anyway. Stops, thank you so much. I know you're not feeling well, so let's all wish Stops and those who are theists, you can pray to your God if you think that helps. But I will wish you a speedy recovery. And
thank you. That didn't help. That's never helped.
No, that's been tested and it hasn't helped as well. So we know that objectively as well.
So why don't we all pray for him to get worse?
Even wishing well has never helped.
No.
Yeah, so let's do the opposite. Let's wish you worse.
We wish,
and then that
recovery. It never changes a thing. It's the same thing all the time. I think
if it's neutral, then it doesn't matter.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
But,
See you next time.
Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Yes.
Bye. Good night.